as sought after as it is feared, but it turns out to be the place of true belonging, and it's the bravest and most sacred place you will ever stand. We're going to sing you a song about that place of true, deep generosity of heart, of knowing who you are so completely that you can give others the freedom to be who they are as well. I once heard a powerful story about a man who stood in his truth. Such conviction in who he was that he would not be moved. Someone stepped out of the crowd and said, "Are you Martin Luther King?" He said, "Yes, I am," and the well-dressed man spit on him, then came, took out his handkerchief and wiped the hate from his suit, gave it back to the man and said, "I believe this belongs to you. I will lift you up and do what I can do. I see your heart and I know your pain. I have been there too. I will hold you high while you do what you have to do." I am clear who is standing here, and I believe this belongs to you. I once had a powerful story I used to carry around. I thought it was you all this time that held my spirit down. But now I know the truth of who I came here to be. You are my angel in disguise, not my enemy. So I thank you for the part you've played in this dance we've had to do. Give you back your own true love. I believe it belongs to you. I will lift you up and do what I can do. I know your heart and I can see your pain. I have been there too. I will hold you high while you do what you have to do. I give you back your freedom now. I believe it belongs to you. I will lift you up and do what I can do. See your heart and I can feel your pain. I have been there too. I will hold you high while you do what you have to do. I am clear as we're standing here. I believe this belongs to you. I give you back your own true love. I believe it belongs to you. Someone knows how to do the right thing. Is this just because we've been coughing up in the high altitude? It's like, do you have pollen? You have pollen. here or something. Was it pollen? So once again, Judy and I do live up in the high mountains of Colorado, and it's beautiful up there. And sometimes we get a drought, and we'll get fires. And we hear probably this next summer, we might have a lot of fires next summer because we didn't have a very good snow year this year. So we'll see what that's going to be like. Some years ago, we had a lot of fires in our area and the whole western United States. It seemed at the time like the whole world was on fire. And the political scene was pretty dicey then too. Not like now. But anyway, it did seem like, what's going on? Are we out of control? What can we do? And obviously, when it's something really huge like that, like Mother Nature, what am I going to be able to do individually?
So let's just take a quick moment and just for those souls, just close our eyes and take a deep breath.
We just didn't know when those fires were going to get.
And just allow that appreciation and gratitude just to move through you.
All of our valuables, we just didn't know. But this is interesting. For me, during that time, I would go to sleep at night and I would have dreams of rain.
And let's take a deep breath together. And release. And as we begin our meditation time, Eric's going to join us on the Native American flute. So together, let's take a deep breath in and slowly release together. And another deep breath. And as you're releasing, just release all of the hurries and the busyness of the morning, allowing yourself to move fully into this moment, fully present, fully alive. Just breathing normally at your own pace. Just follow your breath as it moves within, deeper and deeper still. Allow your attention to move into the very center of your being, your secret place of the Most High. At the very center of you, you know your truth. You know your pure essence is love, is joy, is peace. This is where you can hear that still, small voice, ever present, always guiding you. And as the music softens and fades away, we move into our time of silence. Gently now, return your attention to this moment and this time. You may want to move your fingers or wiggle your toes, but bring back to this moment that connection with your true nature, with the very essence of your being. For this and so much more, we say thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. Amen. Okay, well, good morning. I like that. Got that right back to me. I'm Beverly Pryor, and I'm a licensed teacher here at Unity of Dallas. And James announced last week that I would be speaking. And he brought up that I had been down to Kerrville and I'd given a talk, and that was part of a tryout weekend, which at first I went, oh, he said that right out in front of everybody. And then I thought, well, you're my family, right? You love me regardless. It doesn't matter if that works out and Kerrville selects me, which I hope they do. It's a wonderful community. It's a great little Unity community, and it's a beautiful part of Texas. And if it doesn't, it's in divine order. So this talk that I'm giving today is a version of the talk that I gave in Kerrville, which actually was a version of a talk that I gave in Little Rock. So you get it recycled. But it was Earth Day when I gave the talk in Little Rock, and we tied in some Earth Day discussion. And it was Mother's Day when I gave the talk in Kerrville, and it's Memorial Day weekend here. And so I don't know what that means, but it's kind of an interesting pattern, isn't it? So Call of the Wild, I was preparing for the SCE class, Discerning Your Purpose, before I spoke in Little Rock. And we were reading in preparation for the class this book by Greg Lavoie. Does anybody hear when he spoke recently? This is his book, Callings. Such a good read. So much information. He's brilliant, by the way, at getting all this information and synthesizing it down and just giving you just so much to work with. And so he talks about callings and how they come in different ways and different intensities. Sometimes it's just a little nudge, and sometimes it's a bigger thing. But, a lot of us get a little bit of a heebie-jeebie when we're talking about callings, because we think, what does that mean? If I'm not living my calling now, and I decide to live my calling, what's going to happen? Am I going to have to change my life? Am I going to have to move? Am I going to have to go find a new community? So we think sometimes that it's like that wolf from the book, Call of the Wild, right? We think it's going to shake us up, frighten us a little bit, or maybe worse, scare the you-know-what out of us. It could be wild and unfamiliar, a thought that I've never had before. Wait, where'd that come from? But it feels so real to me. I can't not explore it, right? I don't know where the idea came from, but I just know that's mine to do. Sometimes that happens. It might require us to be brave, to take a deep breath, and to metaphysically, metaphorically, and maybe sometimes literally jump off of a cliff. You just don't know exactly where things are leading you sometimes. So a lot of you know, and some of you may not be aware, but about a year ago, my corporate career ended. I was in telecommunications for years. And when that ended, I was like, okay, that's, that feels complete. But I didn't automatically start looking for something else in that industry or any other industry. I had this sort of breath that I had to take because I just didn't know what was going on. You know, you're always waiting for that big burning bush moment, you know, like in the book of Acts in the Bible. Moses has been in the desert for 40 years, and the angel literally had to set a bush on fire and say, dude, hey, pay attention. This is what you need to do now. And as Dottie pointed out in first service, maybe the angel didn't use the word dude. I don't know. But in my version, she did. So, so after this year of pause I've been enjoying, it's been really nice, quite honestly. It's been really pleasant for me to be in this place of take a deep breath and look around and say, what is next? And in the beginning, it was a little disconcerting because I was used to being driven and making a list and having a plan and making things happen. And I see lots of smiles out there where you know that you're that same way. And I remember I've been in a mentor program with Mary Morrissey for a few years, and I'm like, Mary, you know, it's been a month, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not sure what's next. And she's like, well, are you afraid? Are you nervous? Are you worried about finances? I'm like, no. I'm just in the middle of a deep sigh. And she's like, okay. And she just smiled very wisely. And then a couple months later, I'm like, Mary, remember when we talked in May? And she's like, yeah. And I said, well, I'm still in this thing. She goes, yeah, I know. You told me then. And I was still there. And a few months later, and it's not like I was doing nothing, right? You know, I've been working on a little documentary project, totally bootstrapped, you know, and working on studying stock option trading so I can learn how to make money with the money I have. Just different things I was exploring, but not really career-wise. I was just like, okay, what I'm doing. And I began, as you might have noticed, you've seen me a lot more here all the time, because I've taken on a little bit more and a little bit more around the church community because I had the available time. And so at the first of the year when we did the white stone ceremony, my white stone word came back as clarity. And I'm like, oh, clarity. I can sit with that. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time, like somebody's voice is talking through my head. It's time you get up and go do something, right? No, nobody's had that, right? Nobody's had that voice in your head that's like, okay, I know you're enjoying all this nice, relaxed time, but hey, do something. So I went to the women's retreat in January, and I took 2 additional stones with me. And, oops, sorry. Just looking up there, yeah. The clicker obviously is, you know, a skill I've got to get down before I move to Kerrville, for sure. Anyway, one of the stones says, work is love made visible. So part of my clarity is looking for what's next for me, right? And I've been, some of you are familiar with my little project with the bands. I've been for years working on expanding my capacity to love. So I also took this little pink stone, which represents love. And so in the women's retreat, we bring an altar item. And at the beginning of the retreat, we say, what's our intention for the couple of days of the retreat? And my intention in that moment was to have clarity of how am I to express my love, my essence of love that I am in the world in the form of work. And so we had the retreat. It was wonderful. Monica Clausen was a big part of that. Deb Stovall is always the leader, and it's just a beautiful experience. So if the women in the room haven't done it, sign up. I think there's another one coming up in the fall. But right after that, so Dottie, if you'll come up, I was emailing with Dottie Gandy, and it was about Platform Assistant, which is what Casey and Pam did so beautifully so far this morning. We'll do every month. and just back and forth about schedule and availability. And then she just put this little sentence just in one of the emails.
And the sentence said, because I actually had been talking on the phone with Ellen Davenport a few days prior, and I just casually asked her, so has Wimberley made a decision about their minister? And Ellen said no. So when Beverly and I were talking about the platform assistant, what popped out of my mouth was, have you considered applying for the ministry in Wimberley?
Just random comment, right? So through this experience, through her calling, callings go both ways, right? So that is a calling to communicate, a calling to share, which spoke to me in a way that was like, I literally felt this sort of electrical, and then I immediately ignored it. But I kept communicating with Dottie, not about that, but every time I saw her name, I remembered.
And you were communicating with Ellen.
And that did make, it not made me, but it inspired me to communicate with Ellen, because Ellen and I had worked together here at the church. And it wasn't that there was there were some things that could be said that hadn't been said in 10 years that weren't a big deal, but just a little gentle healing, which took place. And so that's what I thought initially it was all about, is, maybe it's not about me moving into the ministry. It was just to get me to call Ellen and for us to have that beautiful experience and sort of close the loop on any loose ends out there.
Except then there was this opportunity
at Kerrville.
Yeah,
so it popped up, and it kept drawing my attention when I had gone out. Wimberley was already, they had already down-selected into their final candidates. So I was just kind of like looking around going, oh, well, Kerrville's near that area. But it, again, just kind of kept popping up and popping up.
And actually, earlier this week, Beverly and I were having coffee together, and we were talking about that little still small whisper. Where did the comment about Wimberley come from? I don't know. But right in the middle of our having coffee, about a topic that had nothing to do, this thing just popped out of my mouth, which I will not share with you this morning. However, should it come to fruition...
She's going to take full credit.
Yes, I will be back up to share it.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Dottie. Let's give her a hand. Yep. So we're all in that process with one another, right? We're all an inspiration to one another. We all have something to hear from one another and to share with one another. It's not just a one-way thing, and it's not always the burning bush. Sometimes it's just a little subtle nudge. It's just a little bit of scooch this way or scooch that way. Sometimes we think we have a plan, and it seems like we're drifting over this way. But as we're drifting, we're still moving forward. It just looks lateral. But if you look, I've made some progress. I didn't go from A to B, but I'm going over here, and then I'm coming back this way. But look, I'm making progress. I'm going a little bit more in that proper direction. So Joseph Campbell says, follow your bliss. Are you familiar with Joseph Campbell? I know, right? But he also says, if you follow your bliss, doors will open for you that wouldn't have opened for anyone else. Has anybody had that experience where you're just like, wait, how did I get here? How did that happen? I could not have planned that, right? That's happened repeatedly in my corporate career even. I thought I wanted this job in this direction in this department, and those doors were like, and I'm disappointed and sad, yet to find out that actually this was the direction. And when I went this direction, it led me to a better position than I would have gotten if I had followed what my head and my intelligence, my human intelligence tells me is the right way. But actually, the divine intelligence is that collective of all of us that gives us that guidance. It's always, we always know more than we know, right? We always have that knowing beyond. So why don't we follow our bliss more often? We're scared. Or what? Who else? Call something out. You can. We just get ideas in our head, right? We have limiting beliefs. Now, we say all the time in Unity, we're limitless and boundless. But what happens when we're little kids? Kids are the best about imagining anything, right? I used to think that I could fly. I really did. You don't think that's funny? You should have laughed. I don't know why. But no, I really literally would run. There was a side of our house that had this long area that was kind of isolated. And so I would run back and forth to the point where I guess I was delirious. But I literally thought that I lifted off the ground a little bit. And I just thought if I just ran a little bit faster and a little harder, I'm just going to take off a little bit, and that's all I need. I just know that I can do it. I really felt convinced I could fly. Children have such vivid imaginations. I have a great nephew who, when he was little, he's 13 now, so he'll never watch this, but if you ever do, Kate, I'm sorry, I'm going to talk about you. But when he was little, he was a cowboy. And he'd get a swagger and walk around. He'd talk with a gravelly voice. He full-on owned cowboy. Or he was ninja, and he would jump from behind the furniture. Or he was businessman daddy, and he walked really straight with a button-down shirt. He put on this specific button-down shirt. My favorite was naked boy, here to save the world. Yes, he would run around naked with a towel around his shoulders, leaping off the banister. But he fully owned every one of those personas. And we can own more than one persona in our lifetime, right? How many times have we remade ourselves so far? And we're still remaking ourselves. We don't have to stick with just that one way of being in the world. We're always evolving to more. We're always being called to more. And sometimes we don't want to hear the calling, and we do something else. I know for me, my grandmother was a teacher, and her daughters were teachers. And in my family, basically, if you were a nurse or a teacher, then you had a reason to go to college. But beyond that, you could just be a homemaker and stay home or whatever. But it wasn't really, that was like the acceptable. So even when I went to college, I would come home and my grandmother would say, "What are you studying?" I'd say, I'm studying business. And she would say, "Oh, you're going to teach business." I'm like, "No, grandmother, I'm going to do business." I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know business. I just knew I didn't want to teach because that was the expectation. But as you haven't noticed, I've been a licensed Unity teacher for 13 years. So my grandmother was actually right? I am meant to be a teacher, and that is my heart and my soul. It was my calling, but it didn't have to be my profession for me to do it. And that can be the case for all of us. But it doesn't mean we have to stop one aspect of ourselves to just fully express in another. We can fully express in multiple aspects of our lives. We never stop learning and growing. We can always become more. It's expansive to think about all the possibilities. I was at dinner with a friend of mine not long ago, just several weeks back, and I was saying, I've had a conversation with British Telecom, which I used to work for Vodafone, which is a competitor. Had a conversation with British Telecom, and blah, 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 and this is the way it went, and they're, I don't know what that, and then, I have this interview coming up with Kerrville, and I just said, I just have so many options. And this guy looked at me and he said, or no options? I just kind of that didn't really land on me, no vibration hit with me because I don't live in the land of no options, right? I live in the land of there are so many options. I might not know what all of them are right this minute, but there are always so many options for all of us. But when I looked away and I looked back at him and I said, so I just said to you, I have so many options. And your response to me was, or no options. And I'm just looking, trying to understand, and he just went, yep. It was like he suddenly went through a tunnel and shot into a different dimension. We were just not on the same page. We were not in the same place. We just, I still love him as a friend. I still care about him, but wow, that just showed me how far apart we were in consciousness. And just last night, my nephew, he's 50, he's a grown man, but we were having dinner, and he's visiting from out of town, and we were having a conversation, and he and I we agree to disagree on almost everything, except that we love one another, we love our family. So we were talking about some different things, and some political, some of this, that, and the other social. And at one point, he looked at me and he said, "Beverly, you are so positive about everything all the time. I worry about you." And I just looked at him, and he goes, "Well, I know you think this about me and this about me." And I said, "No, I don't think any of those things about you. But what you have to know is I am positive about everything all the time by choice. It is my choice. It's a little bit my nature, but my nature could also go into negative Danny if I wanted to, if I let it. But it's my choice to see the world of possibilities and potential, right? I don't have to live in limitations. It's my choice to wake up in the morning and be happy. It's my choice to wake up and generate a state of gratitude before I even hit the floor. That's my choice. It's your choice as well. We don't have to live in the conditions. Everybody has conditions. Everybody has circumstances. But you don't have to live in those. And if you're listening to that still small voice, you will be guided to your greater good in every situation, in every circumstance. We all have those moments, but we don't have to stay in them, and we don't have to drag them along with us into the next phase of our life. Let that be what it was, and make what you have right now the best it can possibly be. That's your choice. That's your power. That's your divine right. So sometimes we're so busy looking, and this says we waste time looking for the perfect lover. That might be a little racy for Sunday morning, but that just means love, right? Sometimes we're looking for someone outside of ourselves for the love, instead of creating the perfect love. The love that is available to you is the love that you generate, the love that you are, the love that you came in this world as. Have you ever looked at a little baby? I mean, they're just like, hey, yeah, it's all great. Unless, of course, they need to be fed or changed or they're sleepy. But those are just human needs. Other than that, they're pure essence of love. We are all pure essence of love. We all are 100%. We just get ourselves distracted. We get too busy worrying that we don't quite understand how dire things are. We need to be more practical. We don't need to be more practical. We need to be more possible. We need to live in possibility. We need to live from that state of what's next. Because if you don't, you miss those opportunities. They come up right here, and you can't see them. You can't see them because you're looking at whatever's not right. When you focus on what's good, you find more good. Have you ever had that experience? Yeah, the more you look for good, the more you find good, and the more it's your experience. So I want to share with you, I've shared this quote before, but if you'll close your eyes a moment and let me just read this to you, because I want you to just breathe it in. It's by Marianne Williamson from her book, A Return to Love. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Just take a deep breath. Just feel that. When you liberate yourself, when you live to your calling, when you are in response to what is yours to claim, to do, to be, to have, you liberate everyone around you to live in that same higher state. That is a gift. That is a gift to the world. So Jonah, just go into a little Bible here. Anybody not heard of Jonah and the whale story, right? So Jonah was a prophet. He was a very successful prophet, right? He was rocking it. Everybody loved Jonah. So he had this moment of inspiration that came from within. Hey, Jonah, maybe you should go over to Assyria. They're over in Nineveh. They're living debaucherous lives. And you are the prophet that can lead them out of that dark place where they live. And Jonah, as we often do when we get that inspiration, oh, maybe this is mine to do, he said, nah, I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to one of the enemies of Israel and try to tell them all they're doing wrong. They'll never listen to me, and I could really be at risk. He's like questioning. Now, this is a script, straight out of the Bible, right? There's no script. I'm making it up, people. Are you listening to me? Come on, laugh a little, lighten up. Am I being that serious? So Jonah says, no, I'm not going to do that, even though he feels that inspiration calling him. He gets on a boat, go in the opposite direction, storm in the water, fish swallows him, spits him up on the beach in the direction of Nineveh. So he is like, all right, fine. He dusted himself off. But he spent those 3 days in the belly of the whale, right? Just like Jesus was 3 days in the tomb. Moses was 40 years in the desert. There's that quiet time of contemplation where you have to sort of go, oh, maybe I should rethink that. So he did. And he went on and he turned them around. They listened to him. It worked out. But he let his fear drive him in the opposite direction. So sometimes we have those callings that come back and come back, right? Just like with me, with teaching. Just like with possibly going into a ministerial role. They keep coming back and calling us. And we can ignore them for a while and keep doing what we're doing. And we could still be happy with our lives. And the call is still going to keep coming. So what calling have you had that you've ignored? What has your soul invited you to do that you said, oh, that doesn't quite fit me. That's not my thing, although I really love it. But maybe it doesn't pay, or it doesn't pay to be a ninja. It doesn't pay to be the naked boy that saves the world. We've got to find something more practical. Right? We've got to get something with benefits. We've got to do whatever the story is we tell ourselves. I'm not that talented. I'm okay at painting, or I can write some songs, or I'm okay about this. But if that's what makes your heart sing, then that's your calling. It's telling you this is your direction. Sometimes we worry about being that one odd bird. Anybody in this room ever felt like they're the only odd bird in the room? Yeah, a lot of us. But look how beautiful that one beautiful bright flower is. It's the odd one in the crowd, but it's shining beautifully. It's more vivid, and the contrast allows it to show up even more beautifully. And if it was in a whole bed of other red roses, it would just be another red rose. But as the contrast to the white roses, it's like, oh, wow, breathtaking. So we are that contrast. You know, our dreams don't come true, they are true. A desire is put in our heart by that essence of us, which we call God. It's coming from us. Mary Morrissey says, you can't get to your dreams, you have to come from them. The dream is already there. It's whether or not we are allowing ourselves to live in it, to express it, to be a part of it, to show up for it. We're always being called. It might be a simple little sentence in an email that just hits you. But you know when you can't ignore it. You know when you need to come back around to it. And if you don't, it's just going to keep coming back around to you, just like Jonah. So don't get swallowed by a whale. It's never too late to be what you might have been is my favorite quote. And it's credited to George Eliot. Does anybody know who George Eliot was? Her name was Marianne Evans. Yeah. Yeah. She was a Victorian era writer who wanted to write in a genre that was predominantly male. So she used a pseudonym. It was not impossible for her to be who she needed to be. She needed to communicate, and she did. We all have something unfinished. We all have something that we want to be more of. Maybe we're being what we want to be, but we can be more of it. We can be more fully present in whatever that role is. But it's possible. It's always possible because we live in that world of possibilities. So I thank you for your time today, and I really hold for each and every one of you that you listen, that you open your hearts, and you respond with love to whatever your calling is. Thank you.
Beverly. So inspirational. Hope everybody's cups are filled this morning from that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Beverly. And as I said at the 9 o'clock, Kerrville will be lucky to have you, should that work out.
As the ushers come forward and we prepare our love offerings, we'd like to see if anybody's here for the first time. We have a welcome packet we'd like to give you. If you just give your hand up in the air, don't be shy. Beverly. So inspirational. Hope everybody's cups are filled this morning from that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Beverly. And as I said at the 9 o'clock, Kerrville will be lucky to have you, should that work out.
As the ushers come forward and we prepare our love offerings, we'd like to see if anybody's here for the first time. We have a welcome packet we'd like to give you. If you just give your hand up in the air, don't be shy. Beverly. So inspirational. Hope everybody's cups are filled this morning from that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Beverly. And as I said at the 9 o'clock, Kerrville will be lucky to have you, should that work out.
As the ushers come forward and we prepare our love offerings, we'd like to see if anybody's here for the first time. We have a welcome packet we'd like to give you. If you just give your hand up in the air, don't be shy. Beverly. So inspirational. Hope everybody's cups are filled this morning from that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Beverly. And as I said at the 9 o'clock, Kerrville will be lucky to have you, should that work out.
As the ushers come forward and we prepare our love offerings, we'd like to see if anybody's here for the first time. We have a welcome packet we'd like to give you. If you just give your hand up in the air, don't be shy. Beverly. So inspirational. Hope everybody's cups are filled this morning from that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Beverly. And as I said at the 9 o'clock, Kerrville will be lucky to have you, should that work out.
As the ushers come forward and we prepare our love offerings, we'd like to see if anybody's here for the first time. We have a welcome packet we'd like to give you. If you just give your hand up in the air, don't be shy. Beverly. So inspirational. Hope everybody's cups are filled this morning from that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Beverly. And as I said at the 9 o'clock, Kerrville will be lucky to have you, should that work out.
As the ushers come forward and we prepare our love offerings, we'd like to see if anybody's here for the first time. We have a welcome packet we'd like to give you. If you just give your hand up in the air, don't be shy. Beverly. So inspirational. Hope everybody's cups are filled this morning from that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Beverly. And as I said at the 9 o'clock, Kerrville will be lucky to have you, should that work out.
As the ushers come forward and we prepare our love offerings, we'd like to see if anybody's here for the first time. We have a welcome packet we'd like to give you. If you just give your hand up in the air, don't be shy. Beverly. So inspirational. Hope everybody's cups are filled this morning from that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Beverly. And as I said at the 9 o'clock, Kerrville will be lucky to have you, should that work out.
As the ushers come forward and we prepare our love offerings, we'd like to see if anybody's here for the first time. We have a welcome packet we'd like to give you. If you just give your hand up in the air, don't be shy. Beverly. So inspirational. Hope everybody's cups are filled this morning from that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Beverly. And as I said at the 9 o'clock, Kerrville will be lucky to have you, should that work out.
As the ushers come forward and we prepare our love offerings, we'd like to see if anybody's here for the first time. We have a welcome packet we'd like to give you. If you just give your hand up in the air, don't be shy. Beverly. So inspirational.